On the next episode of Painting and Travel, Roger and Sarah visit Sawgrass during the Players' Championship in Ponte, Vedra, Florida. Sarah meets a golf expert, and Roger paints a landscape of the famous 17th Island Fairway.
Today, Sarah and I are at TPC Sawgrass. This is a beautiful golf course. We're in St. Johns County. This is on the east coast of Florida. I'm going to do an 11 by 14 inch painting here today in acrylics. They're doing some maintenance on the greens, and we may hear a little bit of construction noise in the background because there's always events going on here, but I'm going to get started. I'm going to use charcoal to begin with and just sketch in these big shapes where I think the composition might work well. Here's that big tree here. This is called the 17th Stadium course, and over there is the 17th Island hole. It's pretty amazing to watch the golfers because they have to tee off and hit that small island over there. What I'm trying to do here with this charcoal is just block in these big shapes. This gives me a good indication of what my composition will be with the larger shapes rather than drawing each individual tree. I'm just going to block in the large areas. A lot of this is just going to disappear when I start painting. I may block in a few more areas here, then I'm going to put out my acrylic paints, and while I do that, this may be a good time to join Sarah to learn more about the golf course.
Bob Bubka is exclusively a golf broadcaster, and he is an expert in golf broadcasting and has been covering events for over 20 years. And today we're standing in Ponte Vedra Beach, getting ready for the Players' Championship. And what really attracts you to this particular event?
Well, Sarah, there are four major golf events each year. One is the Masters, then the U.S. Open, and then the British Open, and then the PGA Championship. And the PGA Tour has nothing to do with any of those four, but they have the Players Championship, which is now the fifth biggest event in the world of golf. It's at an amazing facility. We come back here every year. There's so much to do in northern Florida. If you're nearby, you can go to the World Golf Hall of Fame in St. Augustine. There's plenty of places to play. I mean, and if you've never been to this tournament, you have to come because the greatest players in the world are here. This is their own championship, and they want to win it.
And I wonder how exciting it gets just before the first tee off takes place.
Well, not nearly as exciting as it gets when they're finishing up on Sunday afternoon. The finishing holes here, 16, 17, and 18 are dynamic golf holes. You can make a good score, you can make an atrocious score. There's water on all three of the holes. Many people call it the finest three finishing holes in all of golf. So if you have a lead with 3 holes to go on Sunday afternoon, doesn't mean that you're going to get the Players' Trophy.
This is down to the wire then.
Oh, it really is, Sarah. I mean, you know, there's $1 million plus at stake here, plus the prestige of, you know, winning the Players' Championship. You get the respect of all your peers. And, you know, golf is now for the ages. I'm just looking over behind us, and there he is. He's 23 years old, Ricky Fowler, and he won last Sunday at Quail Hollow, first victory on tour but he's so popular and he's signing so many autographs, and that's the access that people can have if they come out to the event. They get up close and personal, and you know, it's one thing to watch it on television, but unless you've been to a golf event in person, you don't realize the electricity that races through the crowds and everything. Sarah, the main thing is it's golf for a lifetime. You can be a youngster. I watched a 7-year-old girl play last week. I was very impressed. I watched 82-year-old Arnold Palmer play last week, the most popular player ever to play the game. And at 82, he still has a major love for the sport. So once again, I recommend anybody, you want to have a nice trip, come to Northern Florida, go to St. Augustine, go to the World Golf Hall of Fame. They got 2 great golf courses you can play there. You can play here even, not this week obviously, but any other week you can play this very same golf course. So it's a great place to come to.
Bob, what makes the 17th hole so special?
Well, under normal conditions, Sarah, it's a very benign golf hole. It's only plays to about 150 yards. Most players are only hitting a 9-iron or a wedge there, but it is surrounded by water. And when Sunday afternoon comes and you fully realize that the championship is on the line, and if there's any wind blowing, there's no guarantee that your ball's going to find the green. If you're watching it on television, you'll see everybody, after they hit their shot there, they'll kind of exhale, and they're so relieved. And the people that are out here in person, you'll hear them when the ball goes in the air. They're on the edge of their seats. They don't know whether it's going to be on the green or not on the green. If it lands on the green, they get a big cheer. If it goes into the water, then everybody, oh, you get that groan. And you don't want to get that groan at 17 here at TPC.
Well, I can't wait to go out there and look at it up close.
Don't fall in.
Okay. Well, I'm sure glad you're here. Thanks for talking to me, and I look forward to hearing you on the radio.
Well, I got a definite face for radio, so I enjoy it, though. It gives me an opportunity not only to meet a lot of the golfers that play and become friends with them, but other people in the media like you and your husband. Once a friend covering golf, always a friend.
That's nice. Okay, Bob. We'll see you around.
Well, I'm ready to get started. Out on my palette, I have titanium white, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, which is a transparent yellow, but you have to be aware that some Indian yellows that manufacturers make are not transparent, but I like the transparent Indian yellow. This is cadmium yellow light, and I have chromium green, which is a very opaque green. I'm going to start by mixing very dark color here with my 3 basic primary colors that I use most often when I paint: the ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and Indian yellow. This just makes a very, very dark color. And I'll begin by painting in this tree just very roughly here. I'm just basically wanting to get these big shapes to begin with. This charcoal is dissolved in the paint, so I'm not going to even bother to wipe that off. It just sort of gets mixed with this paint, won't hurt a thing. Oh, it's a beautiful morning out here. They are doing a lot of construction over there, though, so we may hear that throughout the show somewhat. I have my atomizer here. Since it's so bright and warm out here this morning, this will help to keep my paints wet. They'll still dry on the canvas very quickly, but it does help to keep them wet a little bit better on my palette. You have some pretty azaleas over there, which could add some nice red color towards the end of this painting. Indian yellow, ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to put a wash of this green color on here. This is not the right color right now, but I just want to get some tones on here and get these big shapes down to start with. And then I'll go into the color more accurately. You see, we've only been out here just a minute or two, and that's totally dry. It's amazing how fast these acrylics dry, and many people have a problem with that fast drying paint, but once you work with it for a while, you get used to it, and later on I'll be blending a wet color into the dry color. And of course, you can't really blend a wet color into a dry color, but I'll show you how that's accomplished with the use of this little sprayer. Let me see, we have this island here. This is the 17th hole right here. That's that little island. And we have more trees right back here in the far distance. I'm going to make my values in this painting darker to start with, and even this grass, the greens, all this back here will lighten up as I go, but I want to be able to have these darks in the background just so I can put lighter colors on top of them. And the water, it's quite blue this morning because the sky is so blue. Ultramarine blue. I'll just mix some of this color I had on my palette from this grass, because I don't want a very, very bright blue, not to begin with anyway, especially in the water. If I get too many bright colors in my painting right off, then it won't give me any leeway in the end to add some nice bright highlights. So I tend to keep everything slightly gray when I start. The sky is very blue, but down here towards the horizon it gets slightly warmer. I'm going to add a touch of yellow to that. And that won't hurt either, because even though blue and yellow make green, a bit of yellow down here will help create some harmony between all these greens down here. So I won't see some definite division between a bright blue sky and bright green grass. Kind of tie these two together. And when I paint a sky, I try and put on a good amount of paint, because the acrylics don't cover nearly as well as oil paints do. And often when I get back to the studio, I have to go over the sky one more time. So to prevent that, I'll put this sky on heavier than I normally would on maybe other areas of the painting. A couple of negative areas in this tree. They probably won't be quite in the right spot yet, but I'll put a few in there anyway, right to begin with. I'll try and keep some of this blue sky color on my palette here, because when I put more negative areas in these trees here, this will be dry, but I can go back and kind of match that a little more accurately. Well, this chromium oxide green is very opaque, and when mixed with this cadmium yellow, makes a very beautiful, vivid, brilliant green. And as this light changes with the clouds across the sky, I saw earlier there was a beautiful patch of bright sunlight way in the distance over there, and I like that, so I'm going to keep that in mind, and maybe towards the end of the painting put some nice highlights and accents of very bright yellow greens back here to maybe bring the eye back to where this 17th island green is. Right now, I'll start to brighten up this area here. It's very warm. This is a very warm yellow green here. It's more yellow than green. But I like that as sort of an undertone. And now I can see this is very dry, and I can start to put these green paints over this as a glaze. And that's a big advantage of using acrylics, because I can put glazes on my paintings and not have to wait for days and days or even a week or more. I really love that aspect about acrylics. This light is changing all the time. I can see these clouds go over. Now I can see in the very background there's a patch of sunlight hitting. That's what I want to remember for later. I used a fairly big brush to accomplish all this. I'm going to put that down for a moment, pick up a smaller brush, and with a dark color, and I'll just drop in a few tree trunks. I'm going to mix up some more of my sky color now, and that's why I wanted to leave this little pot of color there so I can match it. It's really hard to match colors, especially sky colors. If I were to have to, say I got a scratch on this sky here, I really couldn't just touch it up. I'd have to repaint the whole sky. Now, if it were oils, of course, it would be wet and I could just sort of blend it. But with acrylics, not that way. Bit of negative areas in here. And again, I want to vary these as far as size, because the trees in the background, they're going to go sort of up and down and so on. So they're not totally horizontal across there. So some of these sky areas I'll bring up a bit higher, and some we won't see the sky at all in there. Putting a few more sky holes in over here. It's all right to alter the reality of the scene in order to make a better painting. I've picked up a slightly larger brush. I'm getting all my areas covered. Right here we have a retaining wall. It's very warm in color, so I'll mix up sort of an orange color. And that retaining wall goes right around here. I'll make parts of this lighter and parts of those darker, but I'll cover it as one value to begin with and one color to begin with. Here's the other one right here at the 17th hole. Now we have our trees, more trees in the background, Indian yellow, alizarin crimson. I'm going to put some white in it this time and more blue. So to show that these are in the distance, I'm going to make them a cooler tone right back in here. Now I could put the tree trunks in later, but I like working with negative areas. That gives the painting a nice painterly feel. I'm always concerned with my lights and my darks. So I'm going to keep playing back and forth between the lights and the darks. And right under this set of trees here, it's in shadow. So I'm going to make that very dark back there. And I'm going to put more blue in it, just even though it's dark, it'll be a cool color which will help to make that color recede. I'm always taking my cues from the reality here in what I see in front of me. I can change that reality, but boy, so many times nature just has so many better suggestions on painting and arrangements than I could ever possibly come up with. So right here, instead of having this one line of trees sort of going straight across, this big tree is in here, and it breaks up that area. It would not be so good to put this big clump of trees right in the middle here, because I don't want even distance between here and here. I don't want to divide that in half. So I will put this big clump of trees right here, this stand of trees, over this way. So I have an unequal space here. Oh, there goes a beautiful osprey. Now let me jump into the foreground again and take my cadmium yellow, chromium oxide green. I may have to put some more out there. It's drying fairly quickly. Now this is totally dry. So how can I blend one color? How can I blend a wet color into a dry color? The realistic answer is you can't blend a wet color into a dry color, but I can give the indication that they're blended just by spraying this. And when I paint this light green over this dark green here, or darker green, and I say I want to blend this out into this dry color, by spraying this, I can just drag this out and it will just flow it into this dry color, and it will make it look exactly like these two colors are blended. Here's where I really need to blend this. This is sort of a hard edge here, and we'll blend this into a soft edge. There's a big tree right over here to my right, and it's casting a lovely dark shadow across the grass. Ooh, I like that. What that does is I can use that shadow to describe the form of the landscape here. See, the landscape comes over and down, goes down towards the water. I have a hard edge right on the edge where they mow right there. I'm going to spray my palette, and I have a razor blade. I'm going to scrape this paint off, give myself a fresh start here. I carry this little box with me. I can just put the paint in there, so I'll never have to leave anything behind. I have 3 layers here of values. This is the darkest because these are in the foreground. This is the next to the darkest, and it's a little bit bluer. Push that in the background. These trees here are way in the background, so I'm going to make those the lightest, and they'll also be cool, very cool in color. So I'm pushing the values on these. When I look over there, I don't see these values changing that much, but I'm changing them on my painting just to try and give this some atmosphere and some depth. As I look at this large tree, I can see these lighter colors have more yellow in them. So I'm going to spray this. This will give me a soft edge here on the edge. I think this tree needs to be a little bit larger. I'm going to bring it up more towards the top of the board. I don't want to get this too bright, too yellow, because as I squint my eyes, which I always do, when I look at this painting and squint my eyes, that tree is just very dark. And although when I look at it as an individual tree, these areas are quite a bit lighter, but compared to the areas down here, that whole tree is very dark. So I don't want to get these areas up here anywhere near close to being as bright or as brilliant as these areas down here. So it's a subtle play of values between these objects. I have to think of this tree as one big dark object, and within that dark object I can put in lighter colors, but I have to be careful not to put in colors as light as these areas I see down here. If I were to do that, the painting would start to look disjointed. It wouldn't have a good strong foundation. It would start to look patchy. I can take some of this green, maybe just put a touch of it here and there back in these other areas of trees. That will help tie this together. Well, I by no means have finished these areas yet, but I'm going to focus in on this area right here where I want to have the viewer's eye go to. This is that 17th hole. So to bring attention to the 17th hole, what I need to do is have more contrast in this area, more lights and darks, lights against darks. I'll mix up a very light green with my cadmium yellow and chromium oxide green, maybe some white, and I'll just put that right over the top there, and that will have a nice contrast between the darks here and the light that I'm putting on. That should help to bring the eye into that area. Now, earlier on I said I saw some patches of sunlight way in the distance there that just really seemed beautiful. It was right back in here. So I'm going to do the same thing back in here that I did to the 17th hole. So very carefully I'll try and put in that sunlight that I remember from a while ago. I'm going to get even a smaller brush. This is a pointed brush. I'll make this color back here paler, lighter. This will be more intense. This will have more chroma. This will have more color in it. This will have less color in it. It's going to be a little lighter, but it'll have less color. So the idea is I can still have it very bright and still maintain this sense of distance back there. Now, as I look at this, I seem to find that I have this area of bright values here right in this one spot. I think in order to create a little more interest, I should bring maybe a patch of sunlight over into this area as well. This is Naphthol red. I'm going to put that color right here beside my alizarin crimson and mix it with a bit of the alizarin crimson. Now at the base of this tree we have these flowers right here. Here's the 17th island hole right over here. We'll put the flag on there. I have a few more details I want to add to this painting. Basically, I want to tidy it up. I have some big areas of brushwork and big areas of color. I just want to refine that a bit more. People are always asking, I want to see the detail in the painting, but to get the big areas, the big shapes, the composition in, that's the most important part of the painting. The minor details are really insignificant. The details do add a lot to a painting, but to get these big shapes, that's the basic lesson I have to teach myself every time I go out and paint. And that's what I've got here. I've got the big shapes and the big colors. I've got the basic foundation of the painting in. Without that, the painting would not survive, no matter how many details could be added. What I'm going to do is smooth up these areas here with the greens. I'm going to define these areas in here to bring that into sharp focus. I'll work on this area of the pond and create some reflections in this area. And I'll take a number of photographs before I leave so I can add these details when I get home. Well, it's been lovely sitting here at TPC Sawgrass here on the northern end of St. Johns County. It's a great place to visit. There's lots to do in this area and lots of great things to paint. So now I'll take this back to the studio, I'll add those few minor details, and we'll take one last closer look.
It's a golf course where anybody could win. You know, there's parts of it where you need to hit it far, there's parts of it where you need to hit it really straight. So a lot of course knowledge is probably useful, but it's just a really fun event.
And what about the 17th hole? Is it extra beautiful or extra difficult?
I mean, yeah, it is a beautiful hole, but it's difficult. You think about it. You know, they'd be lying if they said they got up there and weren't thinking about that hole. But hopefully, I can play that well this week.
I'll bet you'll do very well. And what makes the hole so difficult is just that it's a small bit of land.
Yeah.
And you've got lots of water.
Sure. You know, it's not that far yardage-wise. I mean, you're not hitting a lot of club in there. It's just you've got to be so precise. You know, like you said, there's not any room for error. So, if you got your yardage right and the wind right, you just go up there and try to hit in the middle of the green.
Hope things go very well for you.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
Thanks.
For more information about painting and travel with Roger and Sarah Bansemer, visit paintingandtravel.com.